Here's Dr. Stanley's Life Principle 9. It says, trusting God means looking beyond what we can see to what God sees. Staring across the Elah Valley into the eyes of Goliath, David recalled the times God had delivered him from the brink of disaster. God had always given him the ability he needed to triumph. Now he faced one of the greatest challenges of his life, a trained and well-armed warrior named Goliath. At some point, each of us will face what will look like mammoth trials and difficulties. That is why we must know how to respond to every threat by laying hold of the kind of victorious faith that looks beyond what we can see to what God sees. The secret of David's success was his ability to trust and obey God. Had he looked merely at the giant challenge facing him, he would have turned around and run away, as did the rest of the Israelites. But through faith, David saw what his countrymen did not. In times of extreme pressure, God stretches our faith and deepens our dependence on Him. Without a strong, abiding faith, we can quickly yield to the temptation and fear, especially when the trial or difficulty is intense or prolonged. God developed David's trust until it became unshakable. Whatever Goliath you face, you need to bury one truth deep within your heart. God loves you, and when you place your trust in Him, He will not allow you to suffer defeat. You may go through times of failure. Life may not always turn out the way you planned, but ultimately, God will be glorified and you will be blessed. Every challenge presents an opportunity for God to display His faithfulness and love. Instead of yielding to thoughts of fear and failure, make a commitment to trust God, even when you do not know what the next day will bring. Train yourself to look beyond what you can see to what God sees. David founded his faith in the sovereignty of God. That's why he knew he would not fail in his quest to defeat the Philistine giant. How can you gain that kind of faith? Well, first, recall past victories. David recalled how God had delivered him from the paw of the lion and the grasp of the bear. 1 Samuel 17:32-37. You first win spiritual victories in your mind. If you cave in to feelings of fear and doubt, you will lose. When you focus on the truth of God's Word, you will win every time. Next, reject discouraging words. No one in the Israelite camp encouraged David in his quest to defeat Goliath. The soldiers laughed at him. His brothers felt embarrassed by his presence and urged him to go home. Even King Saul doubted David. If he had listened to their disparaging comments, he would have given up. But he turned his heart toward God and there found the encouragement he needed. Next, recognize the true nature of the battle. David entered the battle shouting to his arrogant opponent the memorable words, "The battle is the Lord's, and He will give you into our hands." That's 1 Samuel 17:47. What a victorious way to say God wins. Then respond to the challenge with a positive confession. David asked the fearful Israelites, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" 1 Samuel 17 and 26. To Saul he said, "The Lord will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." To Goliath he said, "I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts and the God of the armies of Israel." David firmly declared his belief that he could not lose because God was with him. Then rely on the power of God. David did not need a spear or a javelin to defeat Goliath. He needed only his faith and a homemade slingshot. Then all this assembly shall know that the Lord does not save with sword and spear. That's 1 Samuel 17 and 47. God provided the victory, and God received the glory. Then reckon the victory. Even before he stepped onto the battlefield, David knew he would not lose. He knew it was his reputation on the line. He knew it wasn't his reputation on the line, but God's. He knew it wasn't his strength or cunning that would win the battle, but God's strength and wisdom. You can face any circumstance with confidence and hope, because it is not your strength, wisdom, energy, or power that brings the victory. Triumph comes because of God's ability, and when you place your trust in Him, you tap into an irresistible force that no one and nothing can successfully oppose. Today I want to tell you about something that happened to me that I don't believe in coincidence. I believe when things happen to us, they happen because of a purpose God has. My wife experienced a very severe heart attack on Boxing Day in 2002. And after 2 weeks in hospital and some stents being inserted into her heart, she came home. Some weeks later, she had to go in for a checkup, and so I went with her, and she wanted me to go with her, and I went in, and after the doctor had examined her and so on, she said to me, "Well, Arthur, how are you doing?" So I said to her, I'm doing fine. I said, "My only problem is I think I'm getting arthritis." And she said, "Why do you say that?" I said, "Well, my shoulder." I said, "What am I doing? My shoulder really bothers me." I said, and it persists for a little while, and then it goes away, but, I said, "I think I'm getting some arthritis." She sort of said, and left it at that. Well, the next day, I got a call saying that I had a stress test booked for the following day. From the stress test, I ended up in South Lake Hospital having an angiogram. And I figured if they found anything, it would be just similar to Dorothy's, and I would get a stent put in, I'd be on my way home. Well, fortunately for me, at that time, they fastened you onto the stretcher so that you couldn't move to stop the blood flow from where they went in to do the angiogram, and I was actually fastened down to it, because when the doctor told me, I think I would have just bolted. He came in and told me that I needed open heart surgery and that they were going to book it for me. So anyway, it was a shock. I must admit, it was a shock. I came home and they phoned me and set me up. They said that I would have an appointment with Dr. Goldman at Sunnybrook Hospital on March the 25th. Well, on March the 17th, I ended up in the hospital in Collingwood. And my doctor came in and said, "I've been in touch with Dr. Goldman, and he has got some time in the operating room on March the 27th, and he will book you for surgery on March the 27th. In the meantime, I'm keeping you in here for precautionary reasons. So from March the 17th until March the 26th, actually, I stayed in the hospital. On March the 26th, I was supposed to go to Sunnybrook Hospital to prepare for my surgery. I got the word that they would be coming for me around between 8 and 8:30 in the morning. So on the morning of the 26th, I got up and I got showered, had breakfast, and got ready and sat on the bed and waited for them to turn up. 10 o'clock came, nobody was there. 11 o'clock came, I'm still sitting there. So finally, I went to the nurse and I said, "What's going on?" I thought I was supposed to be going to Sunnybrook today at 8:30. And she said, "Yes, we did. You were. We had a call from Sunnybrook that they couldn't take you in right away. They had no room for you." And I said, "Oh, that's interesting." So anyway, about 5 o'clock, I got a call from my doctor. And Dr. Young said to me, "Arthur, you are going down today." I said, "I am." She said, "Yes." She said, "I wanted to call you, though, to forewarn you that when you go down, you're not going into a room. You're going directly into the ICU unit." She said, "That's not the usual procedure. You don't go into the ICU until after the surgery. But in your case, you are going into the ICU unit as soon as you get down there." Well, I sat and waited and waited. I was supposed to get, the first ambulance that came in was supposed to take me. Well, the first ambulance came in, refused to take me. Then instead, they took a lady who was to go to another hospital rather than me, because they did not want to go down to Toronto due to the SARS pandemic that was happening at that time. So they refused to take me. About a half an hour later, in came a paramedic with a stretcher. And I'm sitting on the bed, and he looked at me and said, "Art, what are you doing here?" And I looked up, and it was a friend I knew who was a paramedic. And I said, "Oh, Bob, I'm waiting to go to Sunnybrook Hospital, but nobody wants to take me." He said, "Don't worry, I will take you." So I got down to Sunnybrook at about 10:30 that night. Dot and the girls had been waiting all day for me because they thought I was going to be there in the morning. And they'd spent the whole day waiting for me. They allowed them in for 15 minutes to see me before they came in and did what they had to do for the surgery. The next morning at 7 o'clock, I'm down waiting to go in to the OR, and all of a sudden this nurse comes over to me and says, "Art, what are you doing here?" And I looked up, and it was my cousin Marie. And Marie said to me, "Oh, you're going for surgery today?" I said, "Yes, I'm having bypass surgery." She said, "Yes." I said, "Marie, I didn't know you worked here." And she said, "Oh, yes, I've been working here for a while." But she said, "I'm not on your team today. I guess family is not allowed to be on the team." So I said to her, "Well, I don't know who is on my team either." I said, "Because the person who's doing my surgery is Dr. Goldman, and I've never met him." She said, "Well, Dr. Goldman is the best we have. He's the head of the cardiac division, and he's the best we got, so you're in good hands." So she said, where's Dorothy?" And I said, "I guess she's in the waiting room." So anyway, Marie left me and went to see Dot. And in her conversation with Dot, she said, "Art's really fortunate. He's getting his surgery done today." And Dot said to her, "Why do you say that?" And she said, "Because he was in the ICU last night, and everybody who was in a room that was awaiting surgery today got sent home, and the only people having surgery are those ones in the ICU. Now, if you try to tell me that that was a coincidence, then you'd have a hard time convincing me, because I think God orchestrated the whole thing.